Breastfeeding in public, a societal view on breastfeeding today. Breastfeeding in public just seems to be one of those issues that causes a lot of controversy. As recently as August 1st, 2014, Time.com released an internet article discussing the top 16 breastfeeding controversies in modern times. Let's look at a brief history of breastfeeding. While in some cultures breastfeeding was an honor and breast milk had magical qualities, in other societies breastfeeding was a viable job option for the poor. Aristocratic women felt breastfeeding was unfashionable and limited their social options. By the 19th century, with the invention of a hygienic bottle, wet nurses became practically extinct as mothers opted for animal milk as the preferred substitute for breast milk. By the 40s and 50s, doctors and consumers alike regarded infant formula as good as breast milk, leading to a decline in breastfeeding. In the 70s, backlash against formula companies' aggressive marketing to third world countries led to a revival of sorts for breastfeeding. New initiatives in education led to a steady increase in breastfeeding for the next 30 years. However, in the late 80s, formula companies again targeted consumers with advertising stating formula was equivalent to breast milk. While the American Academy of Pediatrics had contention with this, the public opinion was swayed, and breastfeeding has declined steadily from the 20th to the 21st century. Here are some facts on breastfeeding. According to the World Health Organization, globally less than 40% of infants under 6 months of age are exclusively breastfed. Even though breastfeeding, actually, according to womenshealth.gov, breastfed babies tend to have lower rates of certain illnesses as they grow up. It is part of our 2020 initiative for the U.S. as a national goal to increase the proportion of mothers who breastfeed their babies. And with all of this noted, women breastfeeding in public has still caused public outcry. This is a young woman who posted a picture of herself during her graduation at CSU Long Beach. The image went viral on Facebook and sparked a lot of debate about its appropriateness. Breastfeeding laws in all 50 states have been enacted in some form or the other to allow women the right to breastfeed their babies in public and to do so without violating any indecency laws. This leads us to ask, why is the topic of breastfeeding in public so controversial among our society? This is an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and it shows how breastfeeding was portrayed in 1984. Other episodes of Sesame Street from the same era have also been seen portrayed in a similar way. I'll play this video for you guys.
It's a beautiful day in this, you please, won't you please? 10 years old. I played with it a lot. Let's just think of all kinds of babies drinking milk.
I'm going to stop it there, but you get the gist of that. It shows the different ways of feeding babies, and it's not controversial. It's very educational and very appropriate. While our view of that video of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in 1984 was very appropriate and tastefully done, we see today in modern society that a woman was kicked off a plane for refusing to cover up while breastfeeding her child. This led to legal action and her suing the airlines. Some short news clip of that.
Action 7 News live at 10. You can count on.
Vermont's human rights officials have ruled an airline did discriminate against an Espanola woman who was breastfeeding on a plane.
It was over a year ago that Emily Gillette made headlines saying she was kicked off a flight at the Burlington airport for breastfeeding her child. New at 10, Mia Morin talked with Gillette just after the meeting.
And I really believe that the commission exists for a reason. And that's why I'm here.
Emily Gillette finally got to make her case to Vermont's Human Rights Commission against Freedom Airlines. She says she always believed her rights were violated when Freedom Airlines ordered her and her family off a plane in Burlington after she declined to cover up while breastfeeding her daughter nearly 18 months ago.
Have a seat, please.
After she and her family met with the 5-person panel behind closed doors, Gillette emerged feeling optimistic and emotional.
It's a lot of pressure. I'm excited and antsy and nervous.
Her optimism paid off when the commission ruled that the airline had violated her rights. When Gillette's story became public, mothers across the country came to her defense, staging protests at airports in Burlington and other places like Boston and New Mexico. She says this experience has changed her life in a positive way. She's become a vocal advocate for other breastfeeding mothers.
Oh, I'd love to see new policies in an industry with no policies protecting breastfeeding.
And Gillette says she was disappointed the commission didn't find Delta Airlines, which owns Freedom, in violation. She also filed a complaint against Delta. Representatives from that airline declined to comment.
A two-part study on a breastfeeding observation found that while comparing breastfeeding mothers feeding their babies in public to bottle feeding mothers feeding their babies in public, that overall there was mostly neutral glances and no negative feedback. However, the feelings that the breastfeeding mothers felt during this time was that they were very vulnerable in their situations breastfeeding in public, and also they anticipated a lot more negative reactions than they actually received. This just reveals to us that not only is there a certain perception about breastfeeding mothers, but breastfeeding mothers themselves feel like there's a negative public opinion associated with them breastfeeding in public. So why would breastfeeding mothers feel that way? Maybe it's because of a public view of the bottle versus the breast. According to an article in the American Dietetics Association, a study revealed that there's a perception that infant formula is as good as breast milk. And because of this perception, many mothers who aren't really open to breastfeeding or might have a hard time breastfeeding and don't have the support are going to just soften their commitment and not breastfeed because they feel like formula is a very good choice and an alternative for their baby, which is a fine feeding choice for infants. However, the article also found that there needs to be more general public education about breastfeeding and that it is the best method of feeding and nurturing infants, and that they can't make a formula comparable to a woman's breast milk. Because of the perception that the infant formula is just as good as breast milk, that could be a big reason why public opinion is so wishy-washy about how they feel about breastfeeding in public. Some people may feel like it's not a necessary act, that women can bottle feed their child and that their infant formula would be just as good as their breast milk, or that they could bottle their breast milk and not breastfeed in public. This could be a big reason why the debate continues to exist today. Many laws are in place today to protect breastfeeding mothers. A lot of times, though, we see that the attention is brought to the public through a violation of rights of a breastfeeding mother. Obviously, the public acceptance of breastfeeding is not universal. Time Magazine felt strongly enough to issue an article with the cover being a mother breastfeeding. That was pretty controversy. There's ads with the dad breastfeeding their children saying, if I could, I would, as a project for breastfeeding. The breast milk baby, where the baby actually has a suction response, and a statue of Angelina Jolie breastfeeding her newborn twins in cradle mode. They're all very controversial images that get a lot of hits on social pages and show that this is definitely a current event that affects us today.